Dan at SPE Motorsport. We're in the shop this week, and we're going to be doing an installation video on our Billet intercooler for the 2011 to current 6.7 Powerstroke. We're going to do an overview of removing the factory intercooler and putting ours in. So let's dive into it. Alright guys, so we are in the shop, so noise is a little loud, but we're going to kind of start at the top here and go over some of the basics before we even start pulling anything off. So mainly, obviously, here's your intercooler. So if you want to get a look in there, kind of see, this is obviously where the intercooler goes. We're going to need to clear the way so that we can lift it out, generally speaking. So you're going to want to drain your primary cooling system, and you're going to want to drain your secondary cooling system. I'm going to get under the truck here and show you where those drain valves are actually located. Right before we dive into draining this cooling system, we're going to go to a tech tip with Ron here real quick. Hey Ron, you got time for a tech tip? A tech tip. So we're getting ready to drain the coolant on the 6.7 out here, and I wanted you to go over your socket that you made.
Well, this isn't mine.
Well, I made one too, but we want to show the people something you can do to make your life easier. And you came up with it, so I figured I'd give you the...
Well, thank you. Giving me my flowers. It's super simple. Well, actually, I ended up, it could be a 1/4 inch or a 3/8. I ended up using a 3/8 with the small 3/8 snap-on. But just take a grinder, cut a groove in it, so you can get up in there, because the angle is absolutely horrible to get a pair of pliers to twist it. Yeah. So this is the best way.
So basically, we just got to show them how to get up in there.
Do I have to? Or
no, I'll do it. But
I get up in there.
It's all about getting up in there. All right, back to the truck. All right, guys, we're going to go into the truck here, and I'm going to show you kind of where this is located, the drain petcock. So there's the actual petcock, and you have to twist this tab here. So the socket, it's nice because then you're not busting your fingers. It just slides right over top of it like that. You can put it in a ratchet. Don't be super hard on it. It's pretty simple. Just crank it loose. Once it starts draining, you're there. Just let it drain. Take the caps off the coolant bottles, and then when you're done, just finish draining it to actually tighten it up. Don't forget that, because you don't want to be putting fluid back in it, dropping it all over the ground. And then that's the primary on this particular truck, right there. And then the secondary is right up there. So now you can kind of see why the socket would be helpful. So go ahead and we'll drain those out. All right guys, now that we got the coolant draining, you're going to do the primary and secondary, which is right there. Take the caps off, it helps it drain. The secondary system, when you're draining it on this would be like a 17 and up truck. It's all the petcocks and the drain valves are on this side. On the earlier 11 to say 16 trucks, the secondary is actually towards the front side of the grill on the passenger side of the truck. It's a little confusing. It's easier to pull the grill to get to it, and that socket makes it a lot easier as well. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to start loosening everything up here. This is a vacuum line. Pop that loose, move this out of the way. But before you even do any of that stuff, take your battery loose. 10 mils. It's a 10 mil socket, passenger side and driver side. Pop your terminals off. We'll loosen this up. It's actually already loose. Pull these off, all your coolant lines. Just kind of get everything. You want to get everything out of the way so you can make all this open. There's underneath this, there's trees. I call them like Christmas trees that pop into the bottle. Pop those out. Kind of move your power line, your battery wires out of the way there. Coolant coolant hose next. So we'll pop that off, we'll get the battery out, and then we'll get back to it. All right, these are actually 10 mils too. Of course that would fall in there. Don't lose your clips. So the primary hose, the primary upper rad hose here, on some trucks you'll be able to get away with just popping it off here and kind of folding it back. Some of these trucks, like this one for instance, it has this T right here. We're gonna actually have to remove this so we can gain some more room. We'll go ahead and pull this off. Kind of get everything up and out of the way here. That'll give you a little bit of access to everything. And then we're going to end up removing this hose the whole way. But just so you can kind of see what we have going on here, you got 13 millimeter bolt here and a 13 millimeter bolt down here in the battery tray. And that's basically all that holds this intercooler in. So we're going to go ahead and pull this hose off the rest of the way and then take your charge pipes off. And you may have the factory stuff still in place. This particular test truck, we do have our piping kit on it. So this is our charge pipe, which this is all compatible also with the intercooler. So we're gonna go ahead, pop these off. These are either 7/16, 11 or 10 millimeter nuts. Pull the charge pipe out of the way here and we'll get this intercooler out. Alright guys, so once we start taking the hoses and stuff off of the actual intercooler itself, I'm gonna show you how to cut these off, because we're actually gonna reuse the piece. We're gonna reuse this part, but we're gonna give you a new hose that goes from this barb down to billet intercooler. So what you're gonna have to do, take a pair of pliers. Sorry guys, we're in the shop, it's loud as shit. You're gonna take a pair of pliers and you're actually gonna, where this hole's at here, can you see that? This hole, you're gonna take and you're gonna cut like that. And you can do this after you get the intercooler out if you want, it doesn't matter when. You're just gonna take and cut this ring. And the nice thing is, and you can cut it on both sides, there's a hole on each side. The nice thing is, even after we do this, if you ever wanted to say put the factory intercooler back in, you don't need these. All you need is a regular hose clamp at that point. So you could always put this back in, put a clamp on this, and you'd be good to go. So we're gonna go ahead, you're gonna cut this one off, and you're gonna cut this one off down here in the same fashion. All right, so getting this hose off, the easiest way to do it is just get a screwdriver behind it and start prying underneath the barbs. And you'll just kind of pry a little, push, and work your way around it like that. It is just a barb fitting underneath. They're not glued or anything like that. So you're just gonna kind of work your way around as so. Don't stab yourself. And then it'll slowly work its way off. They come off fairly easy. So this one, you won't reuse that hose. The bottom one, we're gonna cut this off, and this hose is actually gonna hook right back up to the new intercooler. So you'll take the fitting out and this hose will get reused. All right guys, so now that we got the intercooler out, there's gonna be some stuff that you're gonna have to retain to actually put on the new intercooler. So we're gonna kind of go over that. We got the grommet here. This grommet needs to be kept. You're gonna pull that out. You're gonna pull this piece of rubber out for the latch to the battery box. We're gonna keep that. And then obviously, you're gonna need the clip here on the back. It's just a little clip with threads built into it. Kind of acts like a nut, like a U-nut. So we're gonna need those 3 pieces. So take those off the factory one, and then what we'll do is we'll transfer these onto the new intercooler. All right guys, so we're gonna go ahead and put the bushing in here that we took out of the factory intercooler. So it'll go in basically just like factory. The metal washer does face down. It is easier to pull this washer out. See how easy this one comes out here. There we go. And kind of put it in without it because it conforms better. So stick that in there. And all the factory, mounting locations are in the correct place. And then you just go ahead and stick that back in there. And then once we get this in, we go ahead and move on to the back here. Very simple. There's actually a groove already cut in the bottom of this where this goes up in. So you literally just take it and push it up in there like that. And it holds it just like the factory intercooler does. And then last but not least, we have this U-clip. The threaded side faces this side, the opposite side of the hole that we're looking at. And we're just gonna take this and push it up in until it clips, like that. And then we're good to go. This thing's ready to go in the truck. All right, so we're gonna go ahead. Now that we got everything on the billet intercooler, we can go ahead and drop it in. Remember, everything is gonna be tight because this intercooler is using up every bit of space that we have in here. So you're gonna kind of catch it on the battery box and then push it down there. Some trucks, the power steering hose at the bottom here will need to be zip tied down a little bit because it rubs just a tiny bit on the power steering hose. But other than that, we'll get our bolts in here. Now we'll tighten these down. Move on to the next thing. So the 90-degree quick connect fitting that we removed from this hose. Let me see if I have it laying here, but I don't think I can see it. So this fitting that we removed out of this hose that used to go out here on the factory intercooler, that line we're going to need to cut about an inch to an inch and a half, depending on your truck. The reason for it is once you get this fitting on here, obviously the hose is a lot longer than it needs to be. So we're just going to trim it up. You can eyeball it a little bit. It works out to be about an inch to inch and a half. And we're just going to take and clip that off of the hose here before we put our fitting on. And we'll slide a clamp over this. And we'll put our push lock fitting in. And obviously you're going to want to kind of, they're push lock fittings obviously, but we're still going to clamp it. And then you kind of want to orientate it before you tighten it down. On the bottom of this hose there's actually a plastic tree that connects the hose to the radiator. It is nice to pop that loose because it gives you a little bit more movement in the hose. So you can pop that loose, and then we'll tighten this down here real quick. so. Keep it here. Just screw it on. The end lines, I like the look of this a lot better than a barb fitting. Originally, when we first did the prototype intercooler, we actually had a barb fitting on that, and I feel like the appearance of the AN line looks quite a bit better. So do that, and then we're going to add a piece of hose to this. The hose is included in the kit. We're going to throw that on there with the clamps and put the fitting on the other end, and we'll show you getting that on. Alright guys, we got the lower hose on here. So this is the hose that we provide. You're going to put the 90-degree push lock end on at the bottom down there. Tighten it down. It's basically going to be in a vertical position. So shove the hose on, clamp it. Pull the hose up. You want to make sure there's no kinks in it. And then you might need to trim about an inch or so off of the hose that we give you. And then shove it on there and put another clamp on it. Now the coolant lines are actually finished. So we're going to go ahead and time lapse throwing the intercooler pipes and everything on. Alright guys, so the hot side's back on here. I prefer going over, once you get everything on, go over all your T-bolt clamps and stuff by hand, especially after getting a drive cycle on them. But one of the things we wanted to touch on here real quick is the outlet of the intercooler. So our outlet on our billet intercooler is 3 inch. On the newer trucks from 17 and up, they went to 2.5 inches. So if you're going to run this in a 17 plus truck, you're going to need a 3 inch cold side basically. So 11 to 16 cold side or an 11 to 16 piping kit for everything to mate up in the cooler. The other thing that we wanted to touch on too is if you look at the outlet, you can see the way we did the end tank, there's a nice scalp in the bottom of the end tank there. That actually helped quite a bit with making it easier to get onto the T-bolt clamp to tighten it down. So I'll show you that here in 1 second. So here's kind of what I'm talking about with having this opening in the end tank there. That notch, you can put this lower hose on and still get to this bolt. You can come in, nothing's in the way, gets right on, makes everything very accessible. You can use a ratchet, a regular wrench, whatever you need to use. It's not crowding it. Now that we got the charge pipes and everything back on, basically just give it a once over, make sure that you have everything connected, make sure there's nothing loose. You're going to want to top your coolant off, but before doing so, check your drain valves on both radiators, primary and secondary, make sure they're tight. And then basically drive the truck, heat soak it a little bit, pop your coolant off, check your T-bolt clamps on all the silicone couplers again. It's a good recommendation. If you have any information that you may have questions on the intercooler and you want to know power numbers, efficiency, things along those lines, we have them on the website, and we also have another product spotlight video on the intercooler itself. If you want some more information on it, it's on the website and on YouTube. So basically, take for a ride, check the fluids, make sure everything's tight, and we're good to go. So we'll catch you on the next one.